This screencast is to demonstrate Visio 2016 with business process modeling notation. We're going to walk through stencils, working with Visio objects, docking, rotation handle, snap, and glue, while also introducing BPMN objects including swim lanes, events, tasks, and gateways. I'm going to now open up Visio 2016. The default screen presents a wide variety of stencils, groupings of like objects to perform a similar task. I could search for BPMN in this prompt, and there is BPMN diagram as one of the available stencils or sets of objects. Choosing this, I'm then going to select the third option. It will give us a demonstration or a sample set of objects already on the page for us to work with, just to illustrate it. Clicking Create. So now I have a working space with some example or template objects that I could move around and customize and make my own. This is on one page of this Visio document. I'm going to add another page just to start fresh, but again, this is for demonstrative purposes to see how a BPMN could be laid out. And there's additional guidelines with fine align, BPM tasks, and how to change the shapes. But clicking down at the bottom to add a new page, I now have a blank page where I'm going to create a business process model for the simple task of ordering a pizza. To start, I always like to add at the top of my page a text box which includes my name. So I'm going to go ahead and add a text box by going to the Insert tab, clicking on text box, and then typing my name and a title for the diagram, BPMN pizza ordering process. Adding a date is always useful as well, April 24th, 2019. So that can also be last modified date, give an idea of when this was improved or so on. Over in the left-hand column of my workspace are the stencil objects for this Visio stencil. The bottom one is a pool lane. I'm going to left-click, hold, and drag, and drop onto my workspace. I'm going to do the same and add another lane, and I'm going to dock it to my additional lane by hovering it, still left-clicking, holding, and dragging until the orange bar appears on the already created swim lane. That will then create a pool with two swim lanes. I'm going to nudge it so it's on my workspace. It's useful to conform to the 8.5 by 11 a workable space so that things can print nicely if people still desire to have a paper copy of the document you create. I also just added a swim lane by clicking on the plus sign here to make it a little bit easier. By clicking on these title bars, I can add additional context, something like pizza ordering process. Each of these swim lanes represents an actor, somebody responsible, or a department, a responsible unit or person for performing a task. So if we were to have a phone clerk be a person that receives the phone calls for delivery pizzas, and a second swim lane would be maybe the pizza chef, the individual responsible for cooking the orders taken, and then the third swim lane could be the delivery person. Just labeling each of those so it's clear to follow. When an activity or an event or a gateway occurs within that swim lane, it is under the responsibility of that individual department or unit or person, phone clerk, pizza chef, or delivery person. In order to establish what a process context is, it's very important to have a start event to clearly indicate when the process would begin, and this could be phone call. So we could define this as being the process for when a phone call is received at the pizza place for an order or otherwise. We would also have an end event, but we will leave that end event to after we work through the entire BPMN. I'm going to now add my first process or task, and I'm going to put task in here, and I'm going to number my tasks in order to make it easy to expound upon or elaborate on. Having this be the first task, I would call this vet and record pizza order. It's important to have meaningful names for these tasks because these are going to be used for documentation and training. Since the phone call is going to always occur before the vetting and recording of the order, I just drag by left-clicking, holding, and dragging a sequence flow object from the stencil onto the workspace. Notice that since when I dropped it onto the workspace, it turned green with the phone call and green with the task, that they are now docked, and if I relocate these items, they continue to stay connected, which makes laying out and organizing the BPMN process flow a lot easier to do after you fully populate it. Another task would be, after vetting and recording the order, would fall into the pizza chef's responsibility, where I would put something like prepare and cook order. So after the order is processed, I'm going to now dock it on the middle item right here. Notice that right now this arrow is not docked to the other task, so I'm going to grab the end of this arrow when my cursor turns into this object and connect it to this second task of preparing and cooking the order. After the order is prepared and cooked, would be likely that the delivery would be prepared, and that would be done by the delivery person. So I'm going to go ahead and type this prepare delivery order. Now, I've put these right on top of each other, but sometimes it's important to make clear that there might be a time sequence where one thing occurs for another with time delays, and so staggering it like so, it can be useful in order to communicate that series of events. An intermediate event would be something like if an event were to occur that we would need to respond to. For example, if the customer called to check on the order, that would be an event related to this process that we'd have to perform a task with. So I'm going to go ahead and add another task, and I'm going to call this 4.0 check status. Now, this doesn't necessarily sequentially have to happen before or after another item, so I'm going to grab one of these association objects and just indicate that the check status task would be associated to preparing and cooking the order. They might check with the chef, and similarly they might be checking with the preparation of the delivery. After that, you could have the next sequence would be to, from the delivery person, would then be to deliver the to deliver the order, where in fact an event may occur. The event could occur as if whether or not a customer were to complete a survey of sorts. Since a customer falls outside of the responsible units, meaning you can't really control how a customer behaves, you could have that be a separate pool. So notice I just dragged a swim lane into the bottom of the working area, and I'm going to have this be customer. And this customer is now, noticing here, the sequence is for the customer to receive order. Okay, so the customer is going to receive the order, but that's a separate pool, which this model is now indicating that there's a clear interface between the delivery person and the customer. Now, we could also somehow, there are different ways to present and represent business processes. This is a one way to do it, and this could be to receive 4.0, receive and accept order. After this, we could have an optional survey where a customer could complete a survey, where we might add this as a gateway, and this could be customer survey. And this could be a sequence flow where after a customer survey, if they choose to not do the survey, so I will add an end event, no. So they did not complete the customer survey. I'm going to resize these things, and I am going to adjust using the arrows, my arrow keys, to make sure the lines appear straight, that the end of this process would occur after the customer survey is completed. Should a customer complete the survey, that would be sent back to, we'll say, the phone clerk, or we could have a different accountable unit, and that's where the phone clerk would have another process. And I'm going to move these around to make them a little bit clearer. And notice you can resize these things, change things around. When they're docked, you want to make things easy. I also noticed I forgot a sequence flow between my intermediate event and the check status. So I also see that this is not perfectly aligned. So if I were to select this item and just press the up arrow key on my keyboard, I can nudge the item up and down. Holding the shift key allows you to nudge pixel by pixel. So now I have a nice straight line, which is a little bit better in appearance wise. So here, this could be, I think we're on to task number 6, which would be process survey, and if they were to receive a coupon after completing the survey, survey and coupon. And the resulting action from that survey would be that this process of the survey would generate another task which would go down to the end event where the customer would in fact receive the coupon for completing the survey. So this is one representation of a simple pizza ordering process. Notice here that this aligned so that it docked and overlapped the other arrow. I like to keep things nice and neat so it's easy to follow, so I move things around. So this would be a representation of a pizza ordering process with an intermediate event where customers could check on an order, and notice a start event where the phone call is received, and the end event is either after the customer chooses to not do the survey, or if they do a survey, they would receive a coupon in order to do so. I hope this was helpful in getting you somewhat familiar with using objects in the BPMN stencil for Visio 2016.